Hi, I'm BZ Rieger, and I'm doing a recording for the live New Earth Community Porch drop-by. It's February 24th, 2022, and this is the first playing with how this works. So that's actually a live picture out behind me on the porch. I'm not sitting on the porch because it's chilly. So I'm going to go ahead and have this recording on. I've set it up so that when people drop by, they just key in the password and they can come right in. And I'm going to enjoy the energies and play with some things as I wait for others. And we'll see how this play experiment goes. I was having an interesting email conversation with someone who we were talking about different, old systems that are corrupt and how to find new ones to use as tools, or how to navigate through that. And specifically, it was around a payment gateway like PayPal. They were mentioning they wanted to be a member, but they really didn't want to go through PayPal, and talk about offering different things was their way to do that. So that's a great conversation, something I've been thinking about for years, how to do that. One of the things, just on the specifically on the PayPal, you can use PayPal, or you can use your own debit card and everything else. But as a pipeline, as a conduit, there aren't that many out there, and like anything that's in the false construct, when you look at it, they can be seemingly one thing, but as you dig deeper, they're connected all in the back, just like media and everything else. So I don't know why it reminds me of this, but quite a number of years ago, when I was still on the East Coast and running my business on Martha's Vineyard, and all the rage was the government was going to implement a certain certification for organic farming. And you had to go through all these hoops and do all of these things, and then you could be graced by them with the moniker of being an organic gardener. And since I was in the business, market grower, gardener at the time, I looked at everything and I thought, well, if we're really going to follow this logically, and how what they have laid out here and what the requirements are, they're breaking their own rules, as is often the case. And but they just didn't make sense. I mean, sensibly, you'd have to have a minimum of 50 acres for your property that you were growing on, and be surrounded by several hundred acres, and have a dome over your head so that the air currents and drifting particulates in the air and all that could come by. And so basically, if you were on a fully organic planet, then and by their standards, you could reach that. And for myself at the time, I grew all organically, but I did it because it was a way of being, it was a way of life, it was a heart set, a mindset. And part of me got my ire up, and I really didn't want to be navigated to how to do that from the heart. Always learning the best practices. And so to conform now, I had to change, even though I wasn't going for the expensive certification and all the hoops. that weren't making the product to my end users, my consumers at the farmer's market or the restaurants that I sold to or anything like that, any better product, actually less of a better product because there was more cost on my end. So as a not a huge farmer or with a lot of extra cash flow, I had to deal with that. And so I had to do things where I, would use labeling as sustainably and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. And I guess the reason it comes up to me when I was talking about the different payment gateways and everything else is that sidestepping something to ultimately go to something fully big and new, unless we can build the fully big and new instantaneously, and we have the scale on our own economic engine, on the people waiting to come in. I'm thinking of Truth Social right this moment. Because we want to, and we want to spread the light, bringing that through isn't really a sustainable way to do it. It's also a form of bypassing in a non-helpful way. And so anyways, that's what the conversation I started. I want to welcome you guys in a second, but I just wanted to finish that thought that the way that I've come to know is that going through something is the only way to come out. And flooding our light as we go through it and we continue to use it and we continue to change things is one of the best ways to do that. Now, if there are already things that are up and running and someone has said, hey, I've got this idea and I want to provide this service, and people can bring it to my attention, or I can find it, or there's ways to use it or support it, you bet. Absolutely. I'm absolutely all about that. And I've been spending a lot of time doing that, looking for those things. So we'll have more of a conversation about this later, but I just wanted to finish that thought. So, hi guys. Hi, Becky. Hi, Jennifer. Jennifer, you're on mute, so you need to unmute yourself. Becky, do you want to share your camera screen so I can see your lovely face? You too.
I think I combed my hair. Who knows?
There you go. Jennifer, can you unmute? Do you want to? I mean, I can do it, but I'll let you do it. There you go.
Hey. Hi there.
How's it going? So
how are you?
I had tried all sorts of things to set up another camera that would come on as as another person jumping on the Zoom, and it's pretty chilly out there. So what you're looking at behind me is Gaia in all of her beauty, and
right.
Warmer on this side of the door.
We're doing our sub-zeros, our craziness here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, your sub-zero and wind is much more than my sub-zero and wind here, so that's good.
Is it? I guess it is. Sometimes.
So how are you guys? Glad you hanging out on the porch? It's a cool way to do things.
I'm doing good.
Good. It's a cold 50 degrees here in Southern California.
Wow. I'd be outside enjoying the air.
That's it.
I know. Canadians that used to come down, they'd wear shorts and a tank top and
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's so funny.
Yeah, we get used to things in different ways, and although lately I've been saying to myself, because I never used to get cold. I'm from the East Coast, and ever since I've gotten in the Pacific Northwest, even a cold day, I've only had a sweatshirt on and maybe a turtleneck.
Sorry.
And never gotten cold. But recently I've been thinking, well, maybe driving to some place that's warm wouldn't be too hot for me, because right now I'm thinking that would be good.
Now, last night when I took a walk, I got snowed on, and that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
It melted, by the way.
What's that? Say that. Where are you?
Southern California.
Come here for a baby.
Yeah.
You want to say hi?
Hi, Kitty.
Hi. This is Olive.
Hi, Olive.
She's my golden nugget, even though she's really orange. I call her golden nugget. She's got golden eyes.
The boys are looking around going, where's the cat? We have another cat to play with. Hey, where's the cat? And Rose is looking down from up in her little loft going, hey, did we get a new cat?
We have a new fur baby in the house. Yeah.
So,
love you.
We're here today. We're the first ones. And do you have any thoughts of how you want to just hang and converse as if it's the sunny day? Or do you someone want to start off on something that you're playing with or thinking about or annoyed at or joyful at? I mean, that's kind of what I started before anybody else came on. I was relaying a little bit of an email conversation I've been having with, I don't want to use your name because I don't have permission yet, but about how payment conduit, she's saying she wanted to be part of the membership, but she didn't want to support PayPal in doing that. And there are different ways to do that. And so I won't go over that again, but I was sharing some of what I had figured out and how, going through it and blasting the light was, if I can't find an alternative that's already up and running that works. And so I think that for me anyways, that's a big thing because I'm in the process of working for someone else a lot and building a new business all at the same time, and very consciously doing both from a completely different vibration, from a completely different heart set, mindset, all of that to do it. And I've made distinct changes in the work that I do at the job and how I hold that and the boundaries that I've had in the last year or more to reflect that. And it's working out better and better for me. It's getting some used to on the job's part. But I think that's part of how we can do all of this. So whether we're just going through our day and we're working for something else or already have a business, whatever it is, intentionally navigating this and setting aside something and saying, well, that's old and I don't want to use it. And if you don't have something to help you do the same thing, now you've limited yourself. From my own experience and my own higher consciousness playing with it is that I'm the only one who's learning something and it's not an expansive thing I'm learning. Does that make sense? Shh.
Yes.
If I'm saying, well, I'm not going to play over there, but I can't do what I want to do then, and I'm a creator being playing because I'm stopping me from doing it, and I'm going, okay. I think there's something wrong with this picture.
So
that seems.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that seems to be a dilemma of a number of people seem to be there. So, some say don't use YouTube because they're bad, right? But some people get their information out that way and aren't being censored as much as others. It's a certain energetic frequency, I think. But my point is, it was just an example that came to mind because someone was talking about that. So I use PayPal. I mean, I don't agree to the system. But until we do have something that's totally heart-based in place, what do you do? That's just the choice that I've had to make as an individual. Right.
Just, I want to jump in 1 minute quick, just to finish on that, Becky. And then in the PayPal, what I was saying I didn't put this before when I was talking on the porch, but I was saying in the email to this lovely person was that for me, PayPal, I knew that, worked with it. I did a lot of work in bringing in the light through the whole TDDA thing, grabbing good data, great screenshots, actually making purchases, flowing through my TDDA, money through there. And so gathering all of the data and actually having it work. And then they shut me down. So I thought about that and I played with how to work through that. And I just kept calling. I kept jumping up to another person higher, higher up in the thing, having conversations, having connections till I found one with some all of me magical, intervention. And I said, no, I'm not going to change what I'm doing. And I would love to do business with you. Can we come to a whole new agreement? They unblocked me. I do this stuff. I haven't shut up. Whether it's the IUV or the LLHD, they knowingly let this happen. So again, I think both ways, if we can find something new, excellent. If we can push the light and change that as well, excellent. But for me, just to say, well, I'm not going to do it, and then that's thwarting my spreading of my light or my own happiness to create things or whatever it is. That isn't there like spite your nose or something? So Becky, please go ahead.
Well, what I was going to talk about is leveling up. And that was one of the things that you talked about before that really touched me to contemplate, what does that mean? So in leveling up, everything is energetic. So PayPal or any of these other things that we think we don't want to support, sometimes we need to get really in there and seemingly support it, but change it from the inside out because of our own energy, our own intention, our own knowingness that it's part of the whole, and that goodness and evil are the same coin. They're just different sides of that. That's and right. So if we limit ourselves, we're not leveling up. We're not taking responsibility for that which we don't agree with, but by being a part of it as a, I don't want to say the word virus, but viruses are healing agencies that create a transmutation to a greater good when the intention is there.
Yes. Yep.
That's leveling up.
Oh.
Yeah. That's infusing our light through in out something, the banking system and everything else, the court system, the whole, jail system, justice system, all that kind of stuff. We need to, that's what I was talking about. You need to go through to move on. And we came here knowing what systems were in place before we said, yep, send me in. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to expand for me and all. Right?
And as master creators, we created this.
That's right.
We created this for us to play in an amazing playground of heaven and hell. And so it's up to us what we're going to choose to feed the angry wolves, whatever, the lions, tigers, the bears, oh my.
Oh my.
And so, I mean, how fun is this? And that when we know absolutely that we're soul, that we can never die, then there's not that fear that is the limitation. The fear is the limitation.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard how hard would you dance and nobody was looking, or what would you do if you weren't afraid to fail? So all of these things are gifts that we can take into our beingness and discover the truth of who we are and play in such a magnificent way that we just turn into the light that we are.
Right. Right.
Right. And you also have that, you also have that energy in general is neutral. So how do you wish it to flow? Where do you want it to go? Right. How do you want to create with it? Even destruction, which you can say, oh, bad. There is a purpose for that, the breaking down and the rebuilding. So even if like you'll see some things that start out as heart-based or, as much as people can get to as a general person, you know what I'm saying? Not to limit that person, but someone creates something to support, say, a group of people, and it's out of love and it's out of compassion. And what happens? That energy ends up corrupted and warped, right? And that's not like an absolute. I'm just saying, like, you can channel that energy, that flow in whichever direction and however you want to create with it. That didn't come out correct the way.
Well,
hopefully you ladies understand what I'm.
No, I do, and I would add to that too. It's helpful to. It's not really a sense of remembering, but it's, unless you're thinking of it as remembering. So remembering all of the consciousness and the expansion around it. That
Right.
that as you just said, Jennifer, and Becky was saying a moment ago in slightly different ways, that we're all one. So you could look at that, you could dance all the way around that unending circle of we're all one, because it's all things in all of Source's multiverse that ever have been, will be, in the no thing, yes, yes, and just about to be. So we can keep dancing all around and go, well, that's good, that's bad, that's this, that. Yes, 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 yes. It's all of it. It's the totality of it. And in fact, because it's all energy, there is no good or bad. There's only perception. And so we dance around that circle and our perceptions change. If I'm taking a photograph with a camera, right? And I'm looking at one scene, like this one right behind me out my window. Mm-hmm. And depending on if I shift even just a foot or 6 inches, the perspective is different, not only from the angle of where I might be looking, but the light, the way the light is shining or the shadow is shining, right? So all of those different things. Now you could say, well, that's a good shot, but 6 inches is a bad shot. No, it's just a different perspective. It's a different aperture of what's going on. And it's the same thing. Now, some may like one where there's more contrast, right? Or more, oh, look at that light shining in, or whatever it is. So anytime that we filter something from a negative or a positive, we're not including all of it. And if we spend too much time just saying, well, I need to be good and accept all, even the bad, then we're not owning the singularity, which is us and our preference, or at that moment, what we want to play with to a greater or lesser extent, right? So again, it's that, you guys both said, it's that balance between those things.
I think that when a person starts desiring enlightenment or to wake up, oftentimes the process, the journey, is finding everything that's wrong. And in seeing that, going through the journey of sometimes depression and, oh my gosh, such this, such that. And then at some point, that becomes a catalyst for waking up to the wholeness, and that in letting go of the judgment of good or bad, that helps us to bring us to the singularity of presence. And so it's all very interesting, to be complicated or ultimately simple. You know, silence is the greatest truth, and to experience that eternal now in the silence does a lot to heal me, and just knowing all is well.
Yeah. And I love, you talk about the eternal silence, and in the way that I be with that and play with that is there's nothing silent about it. It's,
No, it's dynamic.
I mean, they're really, the silence is golden. The silence is loud. It's complex. It's delicious. It's varied. It could be, fully white and absolute silent, but it's in that. It's in when you're in those moments, I find that I can hear all of it. So there's lots, just such amazing different things. And I can isolate down and maybe just feel my heartbeat, or even feel the total pulse of the silence. And then I may focus on something, may catch a feeling within me in the inner galaxies, right? And then I'm focusing on that. And just the way you said that, Becky, it really, it gave me a beautiful video coming in, but it's a tiny little point, which is galaxies wide. And just in the exploration of that helps us frame or navigate or have multiple, like on a camera again, multiple different filters we can put on for perception to then play with something right in our own experience in that moment.
And the strength of it for me is to embody that silence, so that when I'm present here now, that there is no agenda, there is just beingness and calm and appreciation of what is. And it's just sweet. It's a sweet, sweet thing to not be playing so much with ego and personality, but just to be present in sharing just now with beautiful souls that I am you and you are me, and I'm seeing different fractals of the whole.
Yeah. Okay. Yep, I would say there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 anyways that are physically in this porch, because we've got 2 kitties, 2 doggies, and 3 humans.
Love it.
And they all of us add to that component. And there are actually many other beings here as well. I didn't mean to count you out, guys. Many other beings here as well. Before opening the porch for this, I, again, set that space and invited inspiration and ideas and all that in. And also there are other beings who are in this moment tuned in here, yet with their eyes and ears on the physical plane may not watch until later. Wanted to ask a question that it was more of an internal question, wrestling is, well, how do you do that? But you got to X, or how do I do this? And it felt like all 3 of us answered at the same time, that just be with, I would say, play with that silence, whatever it shows up for you. And yes, still walk in whatever moment you are in the world. You're not going, hold up, I'm in silence over here, man. Everybody's got it.
Why not, BZ? Just kidding.
Right? I can see telling the general manager here going, I'll get right back to you on that. I'm in a moment of silence. So, but you do it at the same time because there is only now, right? That's all we have, which, how wonderful is that? Because that's everything and no thing. And that's part of the play, right, Becky? That's how you play with it.
That is how you play with it. And I find that just observing, looking at, really, it's a challenge, but working at not judging the moment, not identifying with it, not calibrating it as being this or that, but just looking at it, allowing the observer to observe, and then the silence can actually become deafening, which helps the silence to be more alive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more expansion. Mm-hmm. It's going on within that.
I've been playing with the idea that I have the right to remain silent. Anything that I say can be used against me from a judgmental, opinionated, whatever, and that in this right to be silent, I am safe, I am protected, and I honor others by not getting into a victory or I can say something clever or like that. And so it's kind of fun just to say I have the right to be silent.
Mm-hmm. And speak volumes in that, whether there is actual auditory coming out or not. One of the ways that I play with it is in noticing. To me, noticing is one of the greatest superpowers that we have, because I'm simply noticing. So again, not labeling, not characterizing, not sorting or sifting. If I'm as an example, if I'm standing outside and I'm just standing and noticing the breeze, is there chill on one cheek and a warm current comes by? Is there a flutter of the wind? Is there a bird? It's not bad bird, good bird, right? Bad wind, good wind. Simply noticing. And how am I feeling and experiencing in that? What is everything else, at least from my perception of it, experiencing and noticing me? And because observing isn't I'm observing. So I'm observing and I'm categorizing and I'm right. And noticing there is no attachment. And there is nothing I need to stand for or give up or separate from. It's just being all there. Hi, Esmeralda.
I like the.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh, I was just thinking a few different things came to heart. Observing is a little more harsh. Noticing is like gentle, like feather. What came to mind was a feather, really soft touch. The noticing. There's no grabbing, there's no labeling. But I was thinking, what you two seem to be, or what comes to me as a description for what you guys are talking about, is it's like that deep soul level multitasking. Like that's the true soul level multitasking, right? You're in the world, not of it, but you're also centered within. You're in your own little creative space, yet you're interacting with everything, which touches everybody with your warm light. If I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to describe it. Yeah. Hi, Esmeralda. If you don't forget, if you want to talk, unless you have a lot of background noise, unmute yourself, because we're on the porch, man. And if the birds are chirping or cat meows or occasional Aussies say, hey, where's that extra cat? It's all good. And luckily right now there are no big heavy machinery going by, so that's good. And that's what my porch, I'm on the glass door in between us, but that's what my porch looks like right this moment. So very pretty from inside here. Very frosty from outside there. So it's a porch. We're just chatting. We were talking about, well, I don't know. We've been talking about all sorts of stuff. Conduits and not bypassing this or that or the other thing, and about money conduits for the old system and the new system, and silence, and how deliciously cacophonous silence can be. and silence in its many forms, which is pretty magical. And I think we have, let's see, I was just kind of thinking about the something on the wind and the breeze blowing by the porch, that it's lovely to feel that we have different porch views of the United States right now, on here. So this is it's a nice way to connect this way. One of the things that I've been playing with the membership and the Living Life in HD blog and all that is how to support myself so I can let go of the job, how to do that as heartfelt and fluidly as I can from a whole new vibrational level. How can I play with, connect with, and be with other people in community, which could be silent, right? Or very connective in a more complex way. And how to do all of that with a feeling where if it's virtual, like this, there is that connectivity, how to set it up so that people who are doing the touchable, right, in their own community, that can be brought in. And once, the things line up and my house on wheels comes and I put it on the back of my truck, I can go and say, hey, I'm going to be in such and such a place. If people are around, we'll find a porch and we'll go sit on that. So that's a dance, I think, that perhaps with different perspectives, everybody's in the moment of right this moment, because everything is changing so fast, and it's easy to look at the bright, shiny cacophony out there of this crumbling down, or that's changing, or got to wait till, or I'll just hang out till something happens or whatever. And but since we're the ones building it, that's not going to work. Right. Oh yeah, I forgot I was building that. I can't wait to construct the house so somebody else does it. It's interesting. It's been fun. Now Truth Social is more and more alive, but I was asked to come in the beginning of last week to do beta testing, and it really was a totally different feeling than any other. I'm not a big social media. I like to go in and do certain things. I have an interesting conversation, but I don't hang out there a lot. So I was happy to do that because of the energetic of it, because it was a tangible representation of just what we've been talking about at the beginning of our porch sitting, of coming up with a new tool, coming up with a new way to have a platform where it is neutral and it is balanced, and there isn't censorship is one thing. And so in doing that, you know, we were actually working, we were testing, okay, this doesn't work, and how do you do this? And, you know, sending in little tickets and saying, well, we're having this trouble, or this disappears. And so we were doing it for a bunch of days. And then Sunday afternoon, you know, I had time to come and work in that. And then in the evening I was in there, and it felt like being in this, because the energetic envelope was so palpable, and the excitement because of the level. I mean, I think some were thinking, well, you know, this is a new social network, we're going to do it right this time, we're going to show, you know, over there on well, I should go this way, over there on that side, you know, which is the left, all this kind of stuff. But a lot of us were just excited, even if some couldn't consciously articulate it, because it was new. It was new in an always going to be new, because we're creating it all the time. And so we're doing these different things, and we're having fun, and we're also testing, so doing other things. And then for me, my experience was all of a sudden, as if I was in this great hall, you know, and there's all these pretty pictures or fun people, or, you know, whatever's going on, and it rumbled. There was a distinct feeling of the whole thing rumbling, the vibration coming, and I thought, okay, does anybody else just feel that? That was cool. And then so it's on my phone, because they don't have desktop app yet. They'll be coming, but everything kind of went like this, you know, kind of glittered or shimmered, and we were like, oh, hey, look at that, we're live. Now, this isn't usually the way you do these kinds of things, but they hit the button, and we went, because we had to go through a testing, you know, so we went in a testing room, not the, you know, if you go to sign up to True Social, it looks like another thing. So we were in this space, like we're in this forest behind me, and we're doing all these fun things. We're looking at the snowflakes, we're doing all this kind of stuff, and then the silence changed, and the wind rustled, and the, you know, the energy, it fluttered, it sparkled for a moment. And I thought, whoa. And then we were live. So we had gone through, and the excitement about that was, again, I think it's different for a lot of people, but a lot of the people, and at this point, there was probably only 500, 400 people in there. So not a lot, considering what it is. And then people started flowing in more and more. But it was, the reason I bring that forward is because it's again, we're building this new stuff. And some of what I've noticed in there, and some of the conversations that I've been having, is people said, well, you know, well, this is going to happen, and you know, Durham will drop this, or this, that, and the other thing. And yes, all that is helpful to help people wake up and all that kind of stuff. But if we only focus on that, and I just said, well, everything's new, and we're creating it all. So is the end of our creation, the rat bastards are going to get, you know, whatever, or is the end of our creation endless? And oh, by the way, aside from that, what else do you want? I mean, what do you want to create? And a lot of people thought, well, yeah, good idea, good question. And people are like, well, no, we've got to focus on that. Well, we're creating it all. And that's just a tangible kind of reminder of, do we get wrapped up in, I guess that leads back to the first thing we were talking about do we avoid something that's a tool because it's constrictive or bad or evil, or do we go through it, bring the light through it, and shift that? We probably get there wherever there is yet to be created and then recreated, but it's just different ways, I guess, to play with it.
If I may.
Sure.
With you speaking about that, I think it's a little of both, that we go through it as we build the new.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because, I mean, everybody speaks to maybe where there's a lot of shaking up as far as government and corruption maybe, and the different types of censorship that are taking place. But I mean, I'm a person that worked for government. My husband currently works for government. And it's really interesting for me to see all of the sort of exterior impressions of what's actually taking place when my world is completely different. If I do a contrast. So people speak to like religious exemptions and how those aren't being approved and they're not even being looked at, and people are getting laid off or people getting fired or things of that sort. And it's real easy to sort of get captivated and taken, and I say taken in the sense of believe everything that people are saying. But for me personally, that's not even, it doesn't even exist. And I'm a person who's living it. I'm not a person on the outside just making assumptions or, and I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, of course. It's more about finding that balance. I'm sure it does happen to some people, but I can't say that it happens to everyone. And so I think that's really important that, yeah, we're building new, and some of these institutions and organizations have served us well, and we can't forget about that, the value that they have brought forth, and until it's no longer valuable, right? That's with everything. And so I just kind of wanted to bring that to the forefront because I think it's really important to sort of find that or strike that balance of how to view things in the sense of like, yeah, there's things that are being toppled and decimated and are no longer of use and are no longer valuable to pretty much our civilization, humanity as a whole. But there's also that transition period that they still stand to a large extent. And so we do have to be the light within those organizations in the meantime that we make that transition.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say too, Esmeralda, that your light and your reality being at the behest of you infuses what your experience is? I mean, okay, we could be honest about it and say it creates what your experience is, but if we're just going to be general about it, right? And so isn't that a beautiful example of going through it to move on? Because in your being you, just the way you do you, right? Because you're the expert for you, you've changed not only your bubble, but now it's walking around the halls or whatever you're doing, right? Having a conversation, whatever it is. And it's this amazing globe of light that's sparkling out. And someone may go, wow, what was that? Right? Because you're inside of it. I mean, you just happen to be there and you're walking around. It wasn't like you went, but that's a great metaphor and an actual touchable, tangible way to look at all parts of it.
That's why I said it's a little of both. Like, I consider myself and a few other people within my organizations and all government organizations that there are a lot of us within those organizations that pretty much are the light holders.
Right.
And that not every person that's associated with government is corrupt or, whatever people may have definitions for them. And so I think that's really important to sort of hold on to, is that there's a lot of light within the organizations, always has been. And I think within every year, it just builds and builds and builds. And there's more and more and more light holders that are within those organizations.
And it expands the connotation, the meaning, the reference, the light of it's being an inside job. It's not just this inside job, it's inside this organization or this, payment conduit tool or whatever else it is. It's an inside job, wherever your perception and perspective of that is. You're in it in whatever form, and you're spreading it out. Like, so
let's just say if I wasn't in within that government, it still is an inside job, because those systems have become what they are because they are a reflection of what we have always been.
Yep.
So it's still an inside job.
Right.
Whether I was in the organization or outside of the organization. So that's why I think it always starts with us, right? And that when we stop being as corrupt and we stop being so comfortable with the darkness or the shadows or however people want to define it, then those organizations will also become more light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Esmeralda, that's so beautiful and so appreciated that I noticed so often that we have a fabricated perception of people and activities, and that they say we're watching a movie in many ways, and I can see that that's so, and that we're being given these information, or this is happening or that's happening. And I think that part of it is to build a superpower of being able to discern bullshit, and so that the truth becomes more and more innate in our superpower intuition, so that when we look at something, we can see a greater balance rather than saying, oh, I'm on this side or I'm on this side, but that the superpower of intuition and truth brings us to a neutrality that we just add our light to all of it and our appreciation to all of it, so that there's not a prejudice, there's not a condemnation of others, but we're seeing it as a whole, and that truth and love will out in the long run, and even in the short run, because there are people like you and like everyone here that wants the highest and best for all concerned, rather than service to self. And that's the the healing virtues, that as we every day I do a prayer of transmutation with the violet fire and the grace of the Holy Spirit, and the dynamic energy of the 7 divine virtues, and that as we move into that the corruption is healed, because corruption is just a mirror view of what the truth is. And as we can drink in that mirror opposite and help to transmute it, then it is healing from within. So thank you so much for your beautiful, beautiful input.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
I have to come up with a good physical thing, but what I've been talking about for years is that everything that we're seeing unfold is like a newspaper, above the fold and below the fold. So we're working on all the stuff. Well, this is not going to work with this picture on here. We're working here. We're working. It's disappearing in our very eyes. We're working, below the fold, which is all of the corruption and all this kind of stuff. And as we get higher and higher to the top, we're getting to the financial slavery system. We're not there yet. And that's going to be one of the hardest for people, because it will no longer be escapable that every single one of us has been completely complicit in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a judgment. It simply is absolute data. And then how we play with that, right, and go, oh, is helpful. Once we get to above the fold, right? Okay, stop that. Once we get to above the fold, then that's going to be the really hardest stuff. It'll drop most everybody to their knees, because then they come into connection with their own brilliance in an unfiltered way. And for so many, they haven't felt that, the unfiltered, unfettered love, that deafening silence of absolute acceptance and absolute connection. So, it's a walk through all of those combinations of things.
For me personally, I never take the corruption or what's coming to the fore, what's coming to the surface. I never take it personal, even though I know each of us have contributed. And the reason I don't take it personal or feel bad or feel like I'm corrupt or that all of us are corrupt or anything of that nature is because I feel it's a natural effect of being in darkness. We are a byproduct of the darkness. So that's the result, that's the outcome. When you are in a place that you are not. So, people talk about this is inverted, this is a backwards, all of this stuff. Well, we are a byproduct of being in a space time that is not our natural way of being. It's like, this is part of our initiation. This is part of our mastery. This is part of our learning. And so, of course, we have contributed, but that's just a natural occurrence of being a byproduct of being in the dark.
Yeah.
And so I don't see it as like, well, that I'm going to be disappointed or that I feel, terrible, because I feel like, well, for people that talk about this is just an illusion and this is just a movie and this is a game, well, that's pretty much how it applies to everything else. And so you shouldn't really take it to heart or take it too personal. It's like part of the process and it's part of our mastership.
Yeah.
But I'll be right back because I have to go do something.
Well, it's also part of how, come on back, it's part of how we like to, we're creator beings. I mean, this is what we do. Create all sorts of things and new things all together. And we're so good that there have been sections that have gone off and created, to the nth degree of this kind of thing, which could be labeled as evil or constrictive or a whole host of things. And, how do we choose to look around and notice and go, yeah, because I forgot who it was who brought it up first, but we were talking about, these constrictions or these, we could say those things out there, but they are a reflection of within us. So the metaphor may be different. One metaphor may be monetary corruption. Another metaphor may be, abuse of another. Well, you know, if we're not loving and it's not, none of it is wrong or right, and where I'm talking right now inside of us, have we been less than loving to ourselves, right? Have we been less than all inclusive to ourselves? I think it's probably fair to say that almost everybody, if not completely everybody, can say yeah, you know, on that. And so that's part of that reflection. It's part of for me, I just keep coming back to, what do I really want to do? How do I really want to show up? What is fun and connective and feeling expansive for me? And then reminding me that in my holding in a really delicious, energetic way, the idea of service to others, and in that I am service to self as other, so that I'm not left off of that, you know, that joyful feeling, that connective and creative feeling. And sometimes it's particularly easy and really expansive, and sometimes because I'm connecting with other people or a job thing or something, I come up with more metaphors for my perceived, I don't know, constriction in that. What's the weather like outside of your window, David?
It's funny that you asked that, because I'm sitting here, I'm using my tablet, so I have across the room from me, I have a big screen TV that I just use as a monitor, and I have a webcam that is at one of the piers here on the ocean. So it's a big screen of the ocean rolling in. If my room wasn't a mess, I would show you guys. But so it looks kind of cloudy, a little bit rainy, probably what it looks like around your way, PZ, quite often.
Yeah, actually, although you're looking at a live picture of what it looks like out here right now.
yeah. I mean, still beautiful, of course, but it's kind of foggy looking. So it's been a little bit warmer here, 65 degrees or so the last 2 or 3 days. And then it's going to get a little bit chillier. So it looks like it's on its way.
Yeah. Do you ever see any dolphins or is there the line, the way the currents and everything flow? Is that a good place for them to come on by?
Oh yeah. I don't know if they're porpoises or dolphins, and then sometimes I think I've even actually seen some whales. They every once in a while you'll see them, and it's funny because I've even seen them here on this cam a few times, and so anyway, it's kind of a neat thing to see. You'll see two, usually in pairs. They'll be traveling, or at least the dolphins or porpoises, whichever it is.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of Atlantic white-sided dolphins where you are. They love to. They'll come in ones or twos or threes, but a lot of times they'll come in big herds, and they just play. It's very fun to watch them, and probably you'll see a lot of gray whales. That usually I've seen them go in pairs. And it's too.
What kind of dolphins did you say it was?
Atlantic white-sided dolphins.
Atlantic white-sided. Okay.
Yeah, so they have a nice. They're the beautiful dolphin gray, and then on the side it's actually slightly two-tone. It's a little bit silverish gray, and then it's a little bit of a creamy-ish silver gray, and they just love to. When they leap, they're more arching with their back because they don't break their speed, so they're, going along.
Right.
And if you're, like if they're going past the pier and you're kind of looking at the pier, you'll see these gray and white, what looks like gray and white flashes, like these big, semi circles, and that's them speeding through. Love to play with
Yeah,
boats.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yep.
they love
Yeah,
to
there's some
play with the boats.
they have some dolphin cruises, like sunset dolphin cruises around here. And I haven't been on one yet, but I have been on a sunset cruise that was similar, and we actually saw some dolphins. So and that was in the Sound, actually, which is freshwater. So I didn't even know that they actually go over there as well. So pretty interesting geography here.
Yeah.
Now, is that your front porch behind you, or like a
Yeah.
not yours front porch? Yeah.
No, that's mine
That's
behind
cool.
me. Yep. It was Tuesday. I had planned out to sit on the porch, actually on the porch, and I was going to set up another camera that we could look at the thing. And I thought, well, I don't know about the camera equipment, but for me sitting out there, it's going to be a little too chilly. So, so I'm on this side of the glass.
Gotcha. But that is an actual cam showing a real time of your porch, the picture behind you.
Yeah, I just haven't figured out how to overlay the two so that they're not. That's why it does funny things, because their feeds are.
I know. I saw it earlier and I was like, did she just disappear?
Yeah. No, the signal's
Cool.
winking. I don't know. Maybe I am learning how to disappear enough.
Right. It would not surprise me these days at all. Yeah, that's a gorgeous view. Definitely.
I know that I have the ability to blank security cams, because where I work, they're all over, and I can just choose to, cloak myself and I never show up on them.
Really?
Yeah.
I had that happen a few times. This would have been probably about like 2019 or so. And I heard other people talking about it on, different YouTube videos or whatever, but excuse me, they had mentioned several times that they would see people approaching them, like walking or whatever. And apparently those people didn't actually see them or perceive them. And when they would say something, it would startle the person that didn't see them until they spoke or whatever. And I had that happen to me 2 or 3 times. I was sitting outside of my apartment, and it was strange, because it's like you feel like they're being rude because they're so close to you. It's like, of course they see you. And then, well, I coughed or something, and they seem genuinely startled. So it's kind of interesting to have that happen to you, if it's ever happened.
Yeah, and well, we drive around, so we're not having gasoline except for big rigs we need, but we have carts, like golf cart sort of things. And the only, I guess, slightly I have to remember result of that is that I actually blank. So the gates are all, if you're on the inside, it's a big spread. If you're on the inside and you come towards a gate, it'll recognize it and it'll open the gate. Except that it doesn't recognize me because it's blanked everything out. So I have to actually push a clicker to get in or out, because it doesn't matter what size vehicle I'm running, and I can jump in someone else's vehicle. And I've said, that gate doesn't listen to, and they think I'm cuckoo, which is okay, because I am, in a very good way. But I'll jump in their vehicle and I'll come right up to the gate and it doesn't open. And they look at me and say, something about the frequency, it just blocks all of that stuff.
Wow. So it's almost like it's your frequency that's cloaking the vehicle as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's been happening for a couple of years now. And actually my golf cart that I use had to upgrade itself to me, because as my energy kept shifting and changing, I'd actually fry golf cart runs on all sorts of batteries, right? And I'd fry, because I'm sitting on the seat and they're all underneath the seat, and me and the dogs and whatever, and they would fry the batteries. You'd wake it up, and it was beautiful. It was magenta and bright green and iridescent, and the guys look at me and go, what have you been doing? I said, just driving around. I said, apparently too much voltage. And so they finally got it so now that it works great. In fact, it's the only one around here that seems to work. And so, yeah, it's a fun thing to talk about. to play with, to notice what we do that in our own, everybody does, because we actually are changing every moment and up leveling and upgrading our frequency every moment. And the things we interact with, our own phone or our own computer or whatever else it is, needs to, or I found that if I set the intention that because I can feel a big shift in me or a change or rush or something, I have a conversation with the different electronics or different things. Shield yourself, because I think I just did a zinger, don't want to fry out the, but everything is sentient in that sense that it's all energy. So we can all connect with it, and just kind of building bridges between our different energies, if that makes sense,
Also with not only electronics, but with animals too. And I know that you have great connections with animals, but I always try to have conversations in different, birds that'll show up at work or whatever. So haven't heard one back any words specifically yet, but I will.
Yeah, you will. Yeah. I like the idea of I can get videos come in all the time of being out in Gaia, and Gaia calls me to go different places, and people are around and say, hey, let's just find a porch and and show up in real tangible light as well, and set up something so that we can have a combo, so it's virtual and tangible at the same time.
I got a question for you. So I've recently noticed there's been, and I wonder if it's related to the 222, or apparently the next wave of like waking up people or what have you has occurred recently, it seems, because specifically there's actually a resurgence of TDA or TDDA videos with new different gurus or whatever talking about it, and even Harvey Dent involved. So it's kind of interesting to see, it seems like it's out of the blue, but I'm sure it's connected energetically or whatever. Have you heard anything or seen anything about that? Or
yeah, I have. It is again about up leveling and things being made visible that couldn't be seen, even if someone was standing, like you were talking about, standing right next to it. So, because I can watch a lot of more traffic coming to the IUV, and sometimes I'm just nudged, go see if you can, on the stats, go see if I can find what was the door that they came into out of curiosity, because the question they're asking, if they're leaving a comment or something like that. And there is a big wave of it. It's almost like doors opening, right? Isn't there that movie? I'm not good with movie references, but Sliding Doors.
Yep.
Or there was I don't know if it was Crossing Timelines or something like that, but yeah, people are, something that's out there occurring, whether it's in the Durham drops or some kind of sense where there's more attention to it, right? Where it was, no, that's crazy talk, right? Now it's like, well, hang on, wait a minute, maybe that's not so crazy. And so they on their own right are looking through it, and somehow they walk through a door, and I'm sure there's lots of other places as well, but the IUV is one door that just seems to open, and they walk in and they find a piece of it, and they're either talking about the TDAs, or they're talking about again, looking at how the whole systems and structures in the financial slavery system work, and that was all designed to do that, and we're just noticing now what it is, and we are noticing it doesn't fit with how we want to do things, right? It's not good or bad, it's not a match. So The only thing that
Yeah, I've also seen related to I guess related to the vax or whatever, and there's some stuff going on in the courts. Well, actually not within the court, it's actually within the it's actually bypassing the courts and basically coming from an executive department type of thing, where they're talking about it, maladministration and those ways to attack like the election and things like that. You don't have to prove fraud. You just have to basically show that the politicians and all of that did not do what the will of the people was. And so it's a lot of like returning to understanding where all the political power is actually held, as defined and described in the Constitution and for each state, and then the federal Constitution. So it's interesting to see kind of people working back to sovereignty, their personal sovereignty. It's kind of interesting to watch it.
yeah,
Like more and more, I can feel them getting closer and closer to the nugget that I'm hoping they'll eventually get to.
yeah. Well, and it's really cool because as bunch of people have been chatting about today, is that it's for me, I would describe it as a metaphor. So that with the sovereignty and all those kinds of things with the outside structures is a metaphor for coming back to discovery of us as a being, what the totality of, they may not label it that way at first because they're looking out there, but they work from the outside in and realize that it got out there because we put it out there, and it's a reflection and everything forms at the behest of us. So it's cool to watch people. They'll come in, so they might come through one of those doors, as I said, thinking it's out there or something, and then something clicks in here and they're like, oh, so I come in a connection where people are kind of meeting themselves for the first time, I think is a good way to describe it, where the two things, a headline or something out there lines up with an awareness of inside, which is particularly cool.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to watch them throw pretty much everything they can and see what sticks. And it's thankfully much less of it, or if any of it, is sticking these days. And it literally is just, it seems so comical and so theater of the absurd. It's like, is this a real really? This is a real headline, or this is really what they said in the speech. So it's funny.
Yeah. Well, isn't there I don't know if it's kabuki or something, but it's that whole idea of, well, like when a child realizes that, and I'm talking about a wee one, is realizing that they're a being unto themselves, and then mom is mom, right? Or the dog is right? It's like, and I don't mean a separation, but there's a boundary of self, which is even in a wee one is particularly empowering, right? Because, wow, I can poke that, oh, hot, right? Or whatever else it is. And just that realization of, again, you can play with it. And so we're just seeing that in adult type or headline type things, because there seemed to be a place for a long time where things were getting weirder and weirder. And I kept going, nobody's noticing that, they don't think that's weird. And they were like, oh yeah, like they just jumped. And I'm thinking, whoa, that's quite a leap thing,
Yeah.
And I think that was the kind of I don't know whether it was the cover over your eyes or whatever else it was, or I don't know, but that I'm seeing reverse now, which is interesting. But I notice the same stuff within me too. I'll chuckle and go, so you just saw that now, huh? You realize that's a habit you have, and it's drawing these things to you, and you don't really like those things, and you're perfect right there. So take a breath and let it go. And part of me says, well, I can't just let it go. I mean, you got to work on it. No, let it go. So I let it go, and I, might even do a snap ceremony thing where I'm breathing and grounded and all that kind of stuff, and it takes about 3 seconds. And I let it go, and I'm like, wow, I wish I paid attention to myself. It was that just easy a long time ago. But it's all been to my benefit, even if I don't always agree with that. So I think everything that's going on, and I have different perceptions of it within myself, given any moment and stuff, is cosmically delicious, because when I stay in that neutrality, I can see all the beauty of all of it, and the complexity, the delicious complexity of all of it, the nuance and the creational force that is at work, whether I'm looking at something that could be labeled and perceived as bad or really freaking evil, right? It's all creational force. And when it flows, think of a beautiful woven tapestry, or all of the strokes, if you're thinking of a painting, and the colors blending, right? It's all of those are all good. I mean, everything's a metaphor. Those are all good metaphors for how amazing creational force is, full stop, but also when we see it in the linear, touchable, tangible sort of a way. And when we start cleaning up how we like to create, we haven't seen anything yet as far as how amazing it can be.
So are you going to do this the porch thing on the same date every month? Is that your plan?
I don't know. What's your plan? Because you all are on the porch. So. I mean, yeah, if people think it's helpful to do it on the same, it's going to be the 3rd, where I don't even know what week we're in. So yeah, if the same date every month, or wandering, maybe it's an evening porch thing here, or maybe it's twice a month, or I'm happy to play and want to play in lots of different ways. And it's interesting. I laugh because I gathered a bunch of stuff so that for this time, because I'm going to be on the porch from this time to this time, and I have my supplies in case no one else could come. And as I sat down and I laughed, and I said to my soul said to me, you realize now that you've guaranteed a whole bunch of people coming, because because I didn't want to keep moving, right? That's why I set it to the password, so that if I was busy doing something, I wouldn't miss the thing that says, hey, you got to let them in, right? So I'm happy to do all of those kinds of things. I would love people's input. Is there different times? Do you like the idea? Maybe we do every X week is more day. Well, I say that, but there's people from all over the world. So I don't know. I'll use United States as a geographic reference. Some every X week, every month will be in the US daytime, and then maybe X week every month will be more in the US evening or something, which changes around the globe.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I think I mean, so say if you did something like did it twice a month, like once every 2 weeks or whatever, and once, like what you're saying, kind of, but so if you had it the same day, like say every second Tuesday was the daytime one, and every 4th Tuesday or Thursday night was the nighttime one. I think that would, at least for people that have a set schedule, you know, could work around it a little bit easier.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know what, but I like the format. It's nice to just be able to stop in and chat.
Yeah. About whatever comes up in that moment, or yeah.
I think what I like most about the discussion on the porch is I have found that it doesn't matter what group I've been able to observe, there's sort of expectations and maybe judgments because people are maybe hold a different sort of difference, I guess, a contrast to what they are, what they believe or whatnot. And I really like that this is more of a neutral sort of space, because I think that really it is about being able to be neutral and accept each other's sort of offering, in the sense of like, there's a difference why we are all different. It's because we all have a different contribution.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that in other sort of circles, it's very, I don't know, it sort of provides a certain template of what you should be, what you should say, what you should do, what you should look like. And you're like, whoa, okay, not for me.
Yeah. Well, I love that you mention it that way, Esmeralda, because for me, I look at it as sitting on the porch. So you could have just come from, you know, a fancy doodah and you got the nicest duds on, or you just stepped out of the garden and, you know, oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to get the dirt on you, kind of a thing, or there's a dog chewing a thing, right? I mean, to me, that's a porch, right? And I love nothing better than sitting on a porch steps or a bench on the porch, whether it's this one or other ones, where I get to just be. And if someone stops by and they get to just be, that sounds cool too. So if they, you know, if they're, oh, I'm so excited, and they go on this, and I'm loving it. And if they come by and, you know, another one comes by and says, and whatever, it's like, you know, let them go for a minute, provided that they don't catch the porch on flames, because they're that, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But they won't, because they won't stay, you know, because they don't, there isn't a same neutrality, right? Or it'll evaporate, you know, they'll go, hang on a minute, I'm going to take that job off, or take whatever the thing was. So to me, that's my only vision, my only expectation is that it's a porch.
But maybe at night it's around the campfire.
Well, I actually have one of those. So if I can figure out how to set up the, you know, out there where we can have one, you can look at that, and then, so like what I want to do is set up so there's 5, you know, little screens here on the 3 now, but there'll be a 6th one where one will be the campfire or whatever it is. And so if someone's just, because you're all sitting on the porch, so you may be listening or listening with a half an ear, or right, and you may be zoning out into the fire. Or once I do the other one, and the hummingbirds are out there actually today, they've been coming a lot. They were knocking on the window at, you know, 6 o'clock this morning, right as daybreak was breaking, going, the hummingbird feeder's frozen and it's cold out here. You need to fix that. But so yeah, that we can do all that. So that way, that's the whole idea, that have you ever been on a porch and there's a bunch of people and you're enjoying either being fully engaged in the conversation or listening with a half ear. You know how kids like a party, especially if there's like a music jam or something, and they fall asleep because there's this wonderful connective thing. And if the music stops, they're like, hey, what, you know, kind of a thing, because it's part of that energy. So I'd love everybody's ideas, and we'll do it. So 1 week a month, I'll do it more daytime, and a different week a month, do it more evening, and just do it that way. Yeah. Cool. And as I said, as the, you know, the actual, for me, the tangible, touchable porch, and maybe we'll have it too, where some people are sitting on the same porch. right across from me, kind of a thing. And then also pulling in the virtual. One of the things that I also, it's, everything's all in the now moment. So I can be in the future now moment and me in this now moment thinking about experiencing and playing with at the same time. If that makes sense. And so one of the things that keeps coming up with me, a nudge to play with, is how to, I'll describe it as blending the virtual and the tangible, right? So like the tangible and then the virtual wood on the porch. Because that's a helpful thing for us to, as we keep expanding, to realize that it's seamless. You know what I mean? So whether we're standing right next to someone, or like I can stroke one of my dogs and feel the fur, or whether I'm tuning into the energetic, we are all things and no things. Sorry, that was working for me. We're all things and no things all at the same time. And the more we can feel and play with that, because someone was talking, I think Becky was talking about it earlier, about, people get in that fear thing, or they'll get nervous about some kind of constriction or something. And it's just a way for us to have proofing for ourselves that unless we want it to be noticeable or stand out, there isn't that delineation, because it happens all at the same time. So it's kind of playing with those, what really is so, in an experiential way. Are you out skiing, Jennifer?
What?
Are you skiing?
I have a window of opportunity to step outside.
Cool.
The sun really feels hot, but it might be because it's been so below zero. But yeah, I got to step. I'm like, I'm gonna go down to the river.
There you go.
It's mostly under ice. I don't know if you
Show
can see
us.
it.
There you go. Nice. Wonderful. What's the name of the river?
It's Laramie River.
Okay.
It's at Optimist Park.
There you go.
I just love it.
What's your name?
I gotta go, guys. I had a good time.
Huh?
I gotta go, guys. I gotta head off to work. It's nice chatting with you guys.
Bye.
See you on the next one.
David.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
I was just gonna say, I've already expressed my excitement. You know how I feel.
Yeah.
I definitely love the energetic envelopes and connecting in that way, but I'm so looking forward to having more community come together in the flow in physicality too.
Yeah. Well, and me too, but one thing is that people say they want that, right? But then it's actually getting them to come and show up for that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a combination of those things, and everybody does it in their own time and how they're ready, but if you're wanting to help facilitate that, it's trying to get in with all that flow, right? And for me, stay in neutrality where I don't have attachment to whatever that happens, right? So some days it's effortless, and some days it's like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't such a great idea.
Right. Well, I know that there's different factors. There's all kinds of energetics. I mean, for example, here I am. My car broke. So the plans that not plans, let me rephrase that. I did have an interest in being somewhere at the end of March. And it may or may not happen, but I'm trying to look at it as, or feel into it as, if it's supposed to happen, it will. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe, there's so many things going on throughout beyond our galaxy energetically. There's so much happening.
Right.
So I'm just going to be okay with it. I mean, there was a little disappointment. Like I just realized the other day, I was like, oh, I currently am unable to literally and physically go. But on the other hand, you know, I have a lot of freedoms. So there's a lot of things I can enjoy.
Yeah, and another thing too you can add into that if you want to play with it is this gives me a wonderful opportunity to give voice to and call into something, a new chariot, right? That
Yes.
but without attachment, because you've already said, okay, I moved through disappointment and I moved through wanting but not having sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now, okay, it's meant to be. And now you're a kick-ass creator being. So now come in with the rest and then go walk at the river.
Exactly.
Right? And they're all good. They're different, right? They're all good, but they're different. And yeah. Cool.
There's
All
still
right.
joy to be had.
Huh?
I just said there's still joy to be had.
That's right. Right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity and getting to meet new friends and people and beings.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon, evening, whatever it is. I love you guys.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.